the legend, the OG in the building, DJ Magic Mike. Give it up.
What's up, Spider? How are you, man?
What? Oh, I am doing good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm blessed, man. Everything's good over here.
I feel like you take scratching to another level, especially for DJs back then, like for the amount that you do it on there and even how advanced it sounded for the time. Wasn't just a little cut.
No,
Like,
not
how did
not
you get
really.
into it or learn?
Um, just listening to records, listening to at that point, being in the South, I was still a hip hop head. I liked hip hop.
Right.
Um, but then when I would hear, the Magnificent Jazzy Jeff, I guess that was 86-ish or whatever,
Yeah.
somewhere up in there. When I would listen to Ugly People Be Quiet, Cash Money, those records, I would hear these cuts and I'm like, I love these cuts and I learned how to do them.
Right.
But being in the South, everything is fast, you know.
Yeah.
So everything had to be 130 plus for us. So I learned the cuts on the slower tempos, but then I just sat there and I kept messing with it until I learned it at my speed. And that
Right.
was how I always incorporated and learned how, all the scratches. But then I started doing my own things back then, just
Yeah.
kind of like, and it was funny because I was having a conversation with Kubert about this was probably he hopped on a Twitch stream about a few months ago, and it tripped him out because he says that him and the Scratch Pickles back then they were listening to my cuts and they couldn't figure out what I was doing, and so he said
Wow.
all of a sudden they realized that all my cuts were backwards and they didn't and
Oh,
it took them a minute to figure that out, and people still to this day they ask me this like I can do this cut but it doesn't sound like what you do, and I'm like because 9 times out of 10 if I'm doing a cut it's always backwards, and that was an accident back then, but now it has came it's how it's my style,
that's
so it's like I'm
crazy.
sit
And what do you
I
mean
know, and it's
backwards? Like not like the
um
wires are crossed like hamster
no
style.
no
You
no
mean
no
like
no no
you're doing the pattern the opposite
backwards. It go
way?
the opposite way. It just so if I'm doing like a regular little roll, if I'm
Yeah.
doing chirps, everything is backwards. And so that's what made it so hard for me when I started trying to learn flares and crabs
Right.
because fader has to stay open, when you
Yeah.
start. But then because I'm backwards and the fader is open, it will sound like a normal cut when I would come in.
Right.
So I was like,
Right.
okay, that's wrong. That's wrong. And so then and then Shortcut, he came here when it was, God, this had to be 98, I want to say. We've way went past another 10, 12 years up now. But Shortcut came
Right.
in and he came to the house with me. We sat here for about a week, dude, and he kind of took me under his wing and he says, okay, this is how this is going to work. But see, he cuts hamster style. I
Right.
can't cut hamster. So
Same. I can't.
him trying to teach me was just like, okay, this is not working. And so then I kept messing with it and I had to pretty much get it on my own. But he showed me the basis and the concept of how to get into the newer style scratches. So then I finally got that and then my backwardsness came back into play. And so hence where I'm at today. Weird,
Wow.
right?
That is weird. That is weird. But that's it. I mean, that's your own style. Like it really is. So
It kind of is, you know.
yeah. And then you can take the sounds you hear. I mean, that's the thing. Coming from back in the day, like even when I was learning, I was listening to people like you, people like the Scratch Pickles, Craze, like you're saying, Rob Swift, Executioners,
Yeah,
all of them. And like you said, a lot of them would do hamster style or backwards but I didn't have even any friends to practice with barely, so I'm just alone. Like, okay, I'm trying to I don't know, how's he going, or whatever the sound
right.
is and I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure it out. And same kind of thing, you just have to sort of develop your own style. And then when you try to
Hmm.
learn the technical, this is how you're supposed to do it. I can't even get my brain to then do it now because I'm so used to my
You so
own
used to, yeah, because you don't even think about it
way.
anymore. It's like
Yeah,
if people ask me now, how are you doing? I'm like, I can't. One day, well, it's back to Twitch again. I was doing, somebody asked me how to do a cut. And so I went to my overhead cam and I was trying to show them in
yeah,
slow motion, how I do a cut. And I was like, wow, this is too slow for me. So I'm like trying to do it and I had to go to my normal speed, but then it was like, wow, that's too fast. And I'm like, I'm a horrible teacher. I said, I'm a horrible teacher. I can't,
It's
you know.
hard, but it's that muscle memory. Same with me. Like it took me months, years of doing certain movements with my hand until I was like, I got it. But like I couldn't explain to someone how I did it, and I couldn't do it
Nope.
at all the tempos.
Now,
And
yeah, and the thing
teaching
is,
is hard. Yeah.
right. And the thing is with Cuba, when Cuba was, because I went to Cuba's house. Um,
Okay.
this was same time frame, 98, 99 ish.
Right.
Cuba said three words to me, and it stuck with me, and it still sticks with me to this day. Cuba said repetition is key, and
Yeah.
it stuck with me. And I'm like,
It's true.
wow. Now when you think about that, it's like the more you keep doing it, you start off slow and you just keep doing the same pattern over and over, the more
Yeah.
you don't think about it anymore. It's
Yeah.
like it's nothing for us to go up and do a chirp. I mean, just but then the average person trying to learn, they can't figure out that we got to bring it in and cut it off.
Right.
And so to try to teach that is hard, but I could show you all day, you know.
Right.
So it's just weird. So when Cuba said that repetition is key, I'm like, I got it. I understand.
That's true. Yeah, you just have to get it to the point where you're not thinking about it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think even teaching is a skill that seems easier from the outside because, like, I had DJ Revolution on, who is and I have the same feeling as you. I'm not a
I
good
can't
teacher. I don't
teach.
know how to do it.
I
And
can't teach. I can't
it took
teach.
him. He was saying, I forget what he said, but something like 10 years to know how to do it. It was almost like DJing. He had to go through so many ups and downs to learn how to teach properly. So I think it's its own skill, and people like
Hmm.
DJ Hoppa, who ran Scratch Academy, and the Beat Junkies, even, like, I'm sure
Yeah.
they have had to create this curriculum and learn how to teach people and learn how to scratch different
Hmm.
ways. Cause
Hmm.
yeah, I try to teach people and I'm like, no, you just do that thing that's in my brain that I can't explain to you.
Yep.
It's
That's
like, don't
it.
you know what I'm saying? Oh,
No,
that's
I
that's
can't
crazy.
teach. Even back in the,
Yeah.
when we had the Royal Posse back in the day, and I had DJs in the crew, we
Right.
would practice together, but I
Hmm.
could not teach them. I
Yeah.
could not teach them. I was like pulling teeth. I just could not, and they were trying to look at me and learn things. I'm like, I'm just a horrible teacher, and I still tell people that to this day. I'm a horrible teacher. I don't
It's
know how to
hard.
teach that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know
it's
how to
hard.
teach that. Yeah.
Well, going back to how you said how everything started and your career started, I read a story about that first gold album you had was that you didn't even know you had sold 500,000 copies. Your goal
No.
was just to kind of do something for fun, maybe sell 10, 20, 30,000, get on the charts. 500 wasn't even a thought. And then you didn't even
No.
know that had happened, that milestone,
No.
right? You were at a
No.
show
No.
and they came and presented you
Yep.
with the plaque.
Th- yeah, that was actually my second album. And
Okay.
we didn't go back. Yeah, that was Bass's Name of the Game, which was my mark. That album was my mark.
Yeah.
Um, but we just the first album was the one that we just kind of wanted to get it out. That was the one with Magic Mike Custer record on it, and Drop the
Yeah.
Bass, and we just wanted to get that album out. It's like if we could sell 20,000 copies, we're good. And
Right.
but in the process of all of that going on, I started having problems with the crew, and I went to the studio by myself and just decided to record the second album, and which was Bass's Name of the Game, and it was supposed to be an instrumental album. That's all it was supposed to be, and it was just something to do, something for fun, to put it
Right.
out. And when we put Bass's Name of the Game out, it just took off like a bat out of hell, man. And we just and then we redid Drop the Bass to put it on there. That was the remix, Drop the Bass 2. Um, and we just put it out, and it kind of took over the Southeast. And then the distributor started picking it up, and it started just moving further and further and further west. And then before you
Wow.
knew it, we were on Billboard, and we're like, oh my God, what is going on with this? Keep in mind, we still not thinking where we were with sales. And then
Yeah.
finally, and right in the midst of the show, they came out and they had the gold records in their hands. And I'm looking at this plaque and I'm like, what are they bringing out? And then they presented the gold record to us in the middle of the show. And I didn't
That's
even know it was gold
amazing.
yet. Yeah, I didn't even know the album was gold yet. And we went back to count the sales for the first album. And then when we went back to count the sales for the first album, we were over 1 million copies on that one, and we didn't even realize it
Wow.
because